It's me again, and we're back on Burda 8451, which is a favourite of mine. I've made this pattern numerous times for myself. I really like it. It's no longer in print, as far as I'm aware. This number has been recycled into a different sewing pattern now. That's what the sewing pattern companies do. So I think it's a dress now. Go and have a look. Tell me if you find out what it is and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we're not making jeans. In the UK, we have been having a series of heat waves, and it has been kind of intolerable. So I have been mostly living in shorts lately, and tops like this one, which I really like. Trouble is, I'm a bit skint at the moment, so to bring you new content, I can't spend money getting materials in, so I have to use what I've got. And I remembered I have some denim left from a pair of these jeans done as per the pattern, and it's just enough to make a pair of shorts if I make some minor modifications to the pattern and how I'm going to do it. We'll get into that in a little bit. It's a nice lightweight stretch denim. There's not a huge amount of stretch to it, so one of the adjustments I've had to make is I need to let the hips out a little bit. This pattern, I think it's designed for somebody who is perhaps younger than me. But yeah, I have to make one modification to the pattern, which is I've got to let the hips out a little bit. Now, originally, the pattern is designed to be done in a stretch fabric, ideally a stretch denim, very snug fit from sort of like the hips where they sit to about mid-thigh. Normally, that's perfectly fine, but this denim doesn't have quite enough stretch. So because I want the shorts to be comfortable when I'm sat down, I want to just put a little bit extra in there. I always struggle with this particular adjustment because I'm never quite sure where to put it in. So I've already made a pair. Here's one I prepared earlier, and these have already had the adjustment done. So this was done in some leftover pink denim that I also had from a pair of pink jeans I did. And I suppose spoiler alert, because now you can see what I'm making. But that proved to me that the adjustment works. I've worn those shorts quite a few times. They're quite nice. Yeah, there's a few things that I want to change that I can do on this one. So I think the best thing to do, instead of me rattling away like this, is let's get the pattern out and let's show you what I've adjusted and how I've turned these jeans patterns into a shorts pattern so you can apply that to your own pattern, whatever you happen to be using. Here are the important pattern pieces. On these in particular, now your pattern might be slightly different, but this is the one that I'm using. So you have usually the two parts of the trousers, the front and the back. And because these are jeans, these also have a yoke at the top. Some trousers have that, some don't. The first thing to decide is how short you want them. And since these are fitted, you can see they taper in and then they flare out at the bottom. So you can change that line as well if you want, depending on what you're doing with the shorts. But to keep things simple, I'm just going with the basic shape here. And you can see with my new pattern underneath just how short I've gone. And to get this measurement, I actually measured a pair of shorts I like that I already have. And you just measure from the crotch seam down to wherever it is on the inside leg. And when you come across in a straight line, that will give you your shape up here. The other thing I needed to do, both front and back, is I needed to extend here at the hip. And that means you have to change this curve. Because if you just pull it out and draw a straight line, you're going to have some weird looking clothes when you sew them up. So that needs to be extended. But also that means the yoke needs extending, but I didn't want to extend the waist because the waist actually fits just like I want them to on these. So I have quite a severe shape here, but that's just what shape it ends up being on me. Same on this side, I've had to reshape just the hip by about the same amount as this side, and I've had to reshape just the very top edge a little bit. This was trial and error. And I can't tell you how to do this. That's the frustrating thing. I can't teach you how to do this. This is something that you learn as you go, as you get used to your body shape. Because I want to keep the pockets on the front, I also need to adjust the pocket bags because these make up the top corner of the trousers like that. So you'll also have to reshape this side here. And for your facing of the pocket, again, you have to reshape here, and I've had to reshape the top just a little bit so that it matches up with this pattern properly. That's all the adjustment I've needed to make to these. When it comes to putting the button fly on, I'm not doing a concealed button fly for a couple of reasons. The first is I don't have enough denim, and the second is they're an absolute pain. So I'm going to do an exposed button fly, which means I can use the pattern instructions just as they are. I just have to omit the zip. When you do the exposed button fly, and this is one of the things I want to change as well, these buttons are a little bit large and there's too many, but it's fine, it works for what these are. But normally you would have your zip in on here and here, and instead we're just buttoning straight through. I'll go through this as I build them up. As you can see scattered about, I've got all my fabric pieces and I've got my pattern out. I've got the sewing machine threaded up with some red. I'm a little bit scatterbrained at the moment. The heat is kind of getting to me. And obviously I can't record with the air conditioning on, so that's fun. But yeah, let's crack on. Let's do this next stage. I've already overlocked the edge of the pockets, or serged if you prefer. My serger has been playing up a little bit today for some reason, but it's mostly done what I need it to do. Right. Yeah, I'll tidy this away and then we'll get on with the sewing. Quick video, remember, quick video. Step 1, pockets. So I've got the pocket bag there and we've sewn along the edge, clipped the corner. You then turn those to the inside and press, which will make more sense when I've done that. And then we top stitch along here just to keep it nice and sturdy. With the back panels, we've got the yoke up here, and it always goes big end to the crotch side, small end to the outer hip side. And we have the seam on the outside because I'm French seaming this. And yeah, so I'll get these done. I've shown you this before, so I'll get this done, get that done, and then I think it's pockets. We'll find out in a minute. We are making progress, but I'm hitting a bit of a hurdle today. I've got appointments and things and I'm running out of time, so I'm doing what I can while I can. These are the two back panels. Normally, you have quite a large pocket on each one. I don't have enough denim for that, and I don't mind shorts not having pockets on the back. So all we've done here is a standard French seam, and I'm using a red stitch that is almost identical to the denim, so it disappears. This piece is going to be the belt loops. So to make that, it's a rectangle that you sew in half, turn out, press, and then you top stitch the edges. Do all of that before you chop it up. I found when I've tried to do belt loops individually and chop them small, they're very hard to turn out. When you do it this way, it's easier. So this will become 5 belt loops. The front panels are done. I've got the pockets finished. I went for a double top stitch on the pocket edge. I will repeat that on the hem, cuff. I never know if it's hems or cuffs on shorts. Anyway, the bottom of them will get the same treatment as this. Now, I am aware that I'm not using one of those special machines for stretch fabrics, so it's not perfect, but also my legs aren't big enough to be a problem with these. It'll just be a snug fit. We should be fine. For the side of the pocket bag you can't see, again, I couldn't use the denim because I just didn't have enough. So I've got a printed red cotton in here, which is left over from some other work, and that's ideal. The tricky part is the button fly. And I'm not doing a concealed button fly because, again, I don't have enough fabric, but also they're more awkward. One side, you'll sew along here, and then that goes that way, and folds under, and then you top stitch along there to hide these raw edges and catch everything together. That side in this instance will get the buttonholes because we're doing exposed buttons. If you weren't doing exposed buttons, you would have 2 more of these pieces and you would make sort of like a placket that gets caught in that seam. So this would have nothing on it, and then that would have your buttonholes in. on this side, I've got two pieces, and annoyingly, one of my pieces was cut out the wrong way round, because of course it was. But since that's going to be on the inside of the jeans, it doesn't really matter. And I need to sew these two pieces together first. Then you turn it the right way out and press it, so this will be on the outside. Then I need to sew that seam, then you fold it, and on the back, when that's folded in, you fold your raw edges and fold that over like that and catch everything with a top stitch that way. It's very fiddly, but that's how it's done. And on this side, I will sew the buttons on, which I just do by hand. Once I've got these pieces done, I can put the waistband on, the side seams, and these will come together really, really fast. But I think that might be a job for tomorrow. For me, it'll be just a moment for you, because my day is going a little bit sideways. And I'm back. Yesterday went incredibly sideways. So I didn't get the shorts done, I didn't get back on the video, which was a little bit frustrating. But this morning has been much better. The temperature is a lot cooler today, which is very welcome. And I've already done some of the work off camera that's just kind of repetitive, so there's not much point me showing you that in this particular video. As you can see on my comfy armchair here, I've already been doing some samples to figure out what size I need for the buttonholes. That's all gone quite well. I've picked out some buttons that, well, I can't say I like them, but of the ones I've got in, they're the best fit. And obviously you can just change buttons in the future. And the shorts themselves, I am just doing the French seam on this leg. This leg is all done, and we've got the French seam finished on that one, which is great. And I've also got the buttonholes put in. Now I know from the pink ones that I did that this buttonhole at the bottom is a little bit of an odd one because it sits a bit too low really to be an external button, but that is where it would go if this was hidden buttons. So that's one of those things where I just put up with it. It's function over form for that one. On the back of the legs there is no pockets, and we have a nice seam there. They are a little bit difficult to do when you sew over the bulk here, and especially with the pocket here, there's a lot of different layers going on, so that bit can be a little bit tricky to do. But we are very close to done here. I'm going to run these seams, and then I think it's this seam here, the one that runs from the waist all the way under the legs, and then we've got some weird catching of layers to do here. This is the bit I really struggle with. This is the bit I need more practice with, and it's why I don't sell trousers, because I just can't get the quality I want on the finish in that area. It's very difficult to do. This next bit is a little bit tricky to do. Yeah, let me see if I can show you what I mean. So I've got both of the legs done now. I've not done the hem, that'll be the last bit to do, but I've got the side seams done, and I've got the inside seam here, such as it is, done. And on the pattern, it says to just overlock this and sew it normally. And honestly, yeah, that's going to be a lot easier. But I tend to find when I do that, I bust this seam out here. It doesn't matter whether it's loose fitting or tight fitting, it's just a high wear area. So I prefer to do a French seam, especially when it's stuff like this, which means I have to figure out, before I sew any of the fly together, where we start. And you do this with the raw edges on the outside, not on the inside, because it's a French seam. I've just given it a tiny clip here to join it up to the stitch line on the fly, and then we pin all the way to what will be the waistband. And the reason in part this is hard to show you is because this is now a 3D item rather than flat pieces, so it's very hard to actually show you what's happening while it's in this form. I'm going to run this seam up, we'll do all the finishing, and then it will make more sense. So let's get this on the old machine and get this finished off. This is the hardest bit for me of the entire pattern, is doing this particular element. You have to be very careful when you do this that you're keeping all of your layers where they want to be and you're not sewing over the wrong bits. It's a lot harder when it's trousers because you've got all the legs in the way, so I'm grateful it's shorts. There we go, we're past the most difficult part. Good, that's the seam done. We haven't caught anything we shouldn't, and because of the way this overlaps, I've now got to figure out which way I want the French seam to roll, because I don't want it to fight the fly, and I think if it rolls to the wearer's right, that way, I think that will help keep this flat. Because I think if I roll it the other way, yeah, look, it's trying to put a twist in here, which you definitely don't want. So roll it to the right, and then top stitch that, and then I can catch the fly. And that should mean that this all goes together nicely. I also need, because it's the kind of seam I'm doing, I just need to trim the excess off on the right hand side so that everything rolls over and there's as little bulk as possible. Good, good. Quickly run that up and then we'll do this bit. And then it's the waistband. So we're nearly done. We're very nearly done. This went a lot better than I was expecting it to, which I'm very pleased about. So I've got this area, which is one of the most difficult areas to do, looking pretty good. The only thing that's annoying is the seams don't quite line up perfectly. I don't know why, everything else lines up, but for some reason, just that one bit there doesn't line up perfectly. But let's be honest, if you're close enough to me to see this, you're not going to be bothered about it because we're very good friends. On the back, similar sort of situation, everything lines up, but my V on the back isn't quite a V. I don't know why. It's just how it's gone. It's fine, doesn't bother me. Next task is to make sure we sew the front. Now, all I've done is I've let this lie where it wants to naturally, now that we've done this seam here, and just pinned that down so that it doesn't move. And I just need to put a second row of stitching here and top stitch over the original stitching there, and then just a little lock stitch. And that will mean that the bottom of the fly doesn't open too far, and it reduces the stress on this area. Realistically, when I've got these shorts made, these top 3 buttons will be the ones that I undo and do up, and this bottom one will probably never be undone. If you have button fly trousers or jeans or similar, you will know that the bottom button pretty much always just stays shut. Kind of odd that we keep it, but that's how they're made. So yeah, that is the next bit to do. And that's not too difficult. When you look on the inside, you can see with where the pins are that everything lines up. So this is the bit on the underneath that we see this side. And I'm just stitching down to capture all of that. And I'm going to do that from this side so that my stitching is really, really nice, rather than this side because I know that I've got enough overlap here that I will definitely catch this piece. And that piece is just what keeps everything sort of modest, I suppose, and also gives you something to sew your buttons onto. Right, do this, and then we'll do the next bit. We're making good progress. I'm very happy. The fly has actually sewn together really well. You can see the problem with that bottom buttonhole. I kind of regret putting that in now because that does look weird. I might not sew a button on there because of the match with the fabric and the stitching. I think that would disappear when you're wearing it. I don't think it'd be too noticeable because the thing is, when you open this, you can't even see that buttonhole. It's in there somewhere. So, like I say, normally if you have a button fly, that one is like in there and hidden. So we'll see how I feel about that in a bit. Finishing details, really. I'm 80% okay with this area here. There's some raw edges that I can't catch because of how everything goes together, but it'll do. And you can see where my stitching just drifted off a tiny bit here. Again, this is why I don't sell trousers. I need more practice to get the finish up to a sellable quality. But for me, this is perfectly fine. I've also got the waistband on, so I've turned my corners. I've sewn this seam, which is just a normal seam, and then we've turned everything in ready for me to top stitch. So I'll top stitch this from the inside, so I make sure I catch everything. Then it's belt loops, and then we top stitch everything else. And that helps secure all the belt loops down. Yeah, and then once the belt loops are on, it's just these bits. And I can try them on, which I haven't done yet. So I should probably try these on and make sure they actually do fit. They should. It's the same pattern as the pink ones. And they look right. So yeah, we'll do that. And then we'll do the next bit. Good news. They do fit. They actually fit slightly better than the pink ones I made, which is nice. That means I must be learning things. I've also finished off the waistband completely. It's all top stitched. I decided to top stitch it before putting the belt loops on because I remembered when I tried to top stitch before over the belt loops themselves can come off. So it's better to do it this way. So I've lined up my 5. They're all about 8 centimeters each, because the strip that you make is about 40 centimeters. And I like to line them up with where the pocket is on the front, because that usually leaves you enough space for your belt buckle and just looks nice. You sew there, and then you turn them over, and you sew them down there like that. The only problem that I have with belt loops, and I've not found a solution, is this end here will fray for a little while after you've actually put them together. It's just the nature of it, but once it's been through the wash a few times, it does stop it. But I will go round and do this on all 5, and then the only thing left is the cuffs or the hems or whichever, and hand sewing the buttons on, and then we're done. Now, I was going to show you this. I was going to show you me trying these on so that you could see what they look like before they're finished. We're trying to keep things family friendly here, and it definitely wasn't without any buttons and things on the front. So you'll just have to use your imagination for that one. But yeah, we're nearly finished, which I'm very pleased about. And they're coming together really, really well. I can see myself wearing these quite a bit. I like them quite a lot already. I've got all of the machine sewing done now. Belt loops are on. Belt's done. I've got the double top stitch on the bottom of the legs here. This is the very last piece of machine sewing, which is just the contraption again, which is great. The more I use it, the better it seems to be, which is nice. Here we go. And that's it. All the machine sewing is now done. I'll cut this out, sew the buttons on. I'll do that off camera. And let's see what they're like. Let's go to the reveal. Shorts are a bit tricky to do a reveal on. There's not a lot to them. It's kind of in the name. This is a really good way of getting some extra use out of an existing pattern though. You can actually take any trouser pattern you've got and just adjust it for what you want. You could definitely make these longer if you wanted. And you can do interesting things like put hidden zips in so you can have modular clothing and that sort of business if that's what you're after. For me, I just like having some short shorts. And up until now, I've just had the one black pair that I'd made from a pair of jeans and the pink pair, which were kind of my prototype for these. Now I've got some red ones. That's great. It opens up some wardrobe options for me. And they're just really comfortable. I know a lot of people aren't really comfortable with them being quite this short, but for me, it's what I like. So it's what I've got. I will see you all in the next video, I hope. I do have a Patreon, so do check that box down below for more of that. And of course, I've also got lots of other ways you can support me and the old channel, which is still running, which is all the car stuff. So we're doing craft stuff over here. And so far, that seems to be going quite well, so hopefully that continues. Right, I'm going to enjoy the warm weather. I'm better equipped for it than I was, and I shall hopefully see you next time. Bye for now.